Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is time to start our webinar. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar, to the third webinar of our series of world market half-year reviews. We've already had one with the focus on Australia and Asia. We had last week one about Europe, MENA region and Africa. And today it's my pleasure to have an excellent panel of speakers presenting the wind markets in the Americas, North America, Central America, we're also here, and South America. The purpose, of course, of the webinar is to reflect the status of wind power in the middle of this year, also under the impact of the pandemic situation of COVID-19. So with this, again, let me welcome everybody who is a part of our webinar here. Just a few guiding words at the beginning. This, of course, is a public event. So whatever you say, when you raise your voice, when you speak, it will be not only recorded now, it's also broadcasted live stream on YouTube at this point of time. Later also, we will publish all the recordings of the webinars on our YouTube channel, where you can also find all other recordings of our previous webinars. Of course, those speakers who would not like their presentation to be broadcasted later, please let us know. Yeah, with this, let me also mention that I would request every participant to stay muted until we call you to speak. For questions, primarily, please use the chat window so you can address the speaker in the chat window as well. We can read the question and then ask the speaker to answer directly your question. Thank you from my side at this point of time also for everybody who is supporting us in holding these webinars, primarily, of course, all the speakers, also our partners, and Profig Ventus, who is supporting this series of webinars, which allows us to make it happen and allow it to happen for free. Now, without further ado, I would start with our first speaker. And what we try to do is we go from east to west, following the time zones that those for whom it is still early morning are the last to speak. And following this, I have the pleasure to invite our first speaker, Professor Everaldo Feitosa from Brazil, who is one of the pioneers of the Brazilian wind energy market. Everaldo, you are also a long-term board member of WWEA and hosted last year our World Wind Energy Conference in Rio de Janeiro, which was actually the last major gathering we had, physical gathering, which without knowing that. Now we look forward to hearing from you about the status, latest developments in Brazil. Everaldo.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. First, I would like to give my congratulations for the initiative of this webinar, and I would try to go straight away to the presentation. Yeah. Right. So this first slide, I think, is the slide that is showing us big numbers. So we have now in Brazil approximately installed capacity of 16,000 megawatts and 5,000 megawatts under construction. When I mention 5,000 megawatts under construction, it's very important to emphasize the side of the private PPAs. In reality, most of the projects that are under construction now are private PPAs and not the auctions from the government based on the corporate responsibility for carbon zero strategy. So this is a new tendency in Brazil that I will show in more details. So in reality, when you see the country ranking at the end of 2019, we see Brazil in the 8th place in the world. So this is a very important consideration when you see the market for wind in Brazil. And again, 90% of the wind projects in Brazil are located in the Northeast region. This is another important point, because when we have at the moment most of the transmission lines not enough to transport the electricity generated in the northeast of Brazil to the south of Brazil, to the southeast of Brazil, this is still a big concern in Brazil. How we are going to expand the proportion of wind energy in the northeast of Brazil, and most of the consumers are located in the south of Brazil. This is a big question that probably will be a huge debate in this year, next year. Why? Because we have in the Northeast, this slide is very important, because the slide is showing the energy generation in Northeast of Brazil this year. In spite of the COVID, we still have all the projects under construction, and basically we have a kind of gap during 6 months, but all the projects are under a very straightforward timetable. So in September, we can see here, we can see most of the time in June, July, August, September, and October, most of the time, the wind energy is generated more than 50% of the electricity consumed in the Northeast. And in September, we have 100% of energy from wind. This is very important, because in the Northeast of Brazil, we have more than 50 million of people living in this region. The tendency that we can see, this is an important slide. We can see in the red line the electricity price in US dollars per megawatt hour. So from 2017 to 2018, 2019, the prices have decreased substantially. And we can see the price decreasing from $35 per megawatt hour on the left side to nearly $20, $25 per megawatt hour in last year, mainly due to the auction. And why we have this so low price? To have such a wind energy projects selling with a price less than $25 per megawatt hour, the only way to have this kind of strategy is decreasing the amount of electricity that you are going to participate in the auction from the government. So we can see here the tendency. So nearly the end of last year, with the last auction at the end of 2019, 40% of the electricity have been sold to the government auction, and 60% sold to the private market. So with this kind of mixture between private and government auction, the companies can really decrease the price and going ahead in a different strategy. So this strong tendency have started in 2017. As we can see here, the red column shows the free market, so 2019 and 2020, and this is a tendency that we are going to have in Brazil. And I have the opinion that in 2-3 years' time, the free market will reach the same amount of the regulated market in Brazil. And we can see here the tendency. These are the projects already approved by the Brazilian regulatory agencies. we can see here in 2021, 1,252 megawatts in the free market and nearly 1,000 in the auctions. And in 2022, we are going to have nearly 3 times the amount of the government auction install capacity. So this is a new tendency. It's important because we can see that the companies are going in the greener products, in the line of greener products, greener generation, and carbon neutral. So we have this kind of dichotomy between the government attitude and the private sector in Brazil.
Very good. Everaldo, I think that this is extremely exciting. Thanks a lot for your presentation, and I think that is a very, very interesting development that we see. Actually, we heard from some other countries where the auctions are creating big problems. In particular, India. I was actually this morning in a webinar where there was a discussion, and I think we have one colleague here from India as well, that the auctions are delivering too low prices. And I think for India, this is also something that the colleague may be interested in hearing, that now the market is providing higher prices than the outcome of the auctions are. Very interesting. What would you see, Everaldo, or how would you see the impact of COVID-19? Does it have an impact on the price level on the market? Because I assume that, like in other countries as well, the general demand for power is now decreasing. Everaldo, can you still hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have not seen a strong impact in the wind energy sector in Brazil. So we have decreased the consumption of electricity in the range between 5 and 10%. But since last month, the consumption has increased very substantial in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And the only impact has been in the beginning due to the lack of components, mainly from China. So the wind turbine manufacturers, they have a kind of delay in the delivery of the projects. But as we are now going to the private PPAs, the companies are trying to speed up all the process for generated energy from renewables. So this is the opposite. After COVID, in spite of the government decision not to publicize some kind of actions for the carbon neutral, but all the companies have seen that we cannot wait for the government. This is the right time to go forward, and the companies that are not involved in this new wave, they will be in the past. So this is at least something very good that's happening in Brazil at the moment.
That sounds very promising. And actually, one part of what you say is being shared by all the previous country representatives that we heard. Some of them say there is some delay this year, but in the midterm already, everybody has agreed that there are bright prospects now, even as the COVID-19 impact is that governments are rather focusing more on domestic energy sources. So I see one question here. Which other alternatives do you have for utilizing the electricity from the north, besides building more transmission lines?
Well, we have in Brazil, in the north, we have the hydroelectric power plants, with dams. In the northeast, we have wind and solar. And most of the consumers are located in the southeast of Brazil. So the way Brazil is divided in 4 regions for electricity generation and to the control of this flow of electrons in the north, northeast, south, and southeast. So we, at the moment, we see the only problem is to reinforce the grid. And this is a strategy that needs to be done in a short term. This has to be done by the government investment, and this is a political attitude that most of the governors of the states of the Northeast, they are now trying to push forward.
Do you have any discussion about using excess power for hydrogen? This is a discussion that in some countries, of course, is now getting more and more relevant.
We have some proposals that are being discussed in generating hydrogen from natural gas, because as you know, in Brazil, we have the pré-salt, a very huge oil and gas sites have been located in the ocean, and the proposal is to use these to generate hydrogen and to use these as transports and other applications.
Okay, but it's not so much a discussion yet about making that
Not yet, no.
from hydropower. Okay, well, very good. Thanks a lot, Everaldo. And please have a look also at the chat window here. Maybe there are some other questions popping up for you. That was very, I think, encouraging also to hear. It's good to see that the wind sector in Brazil can more and more stand on its own.